in his head. He has to go, and so Belize will go down with him too. Madam Speaker, I want to speak for this generation. Belize is bigger than any one pharaoh. Belize is not about you, Mr. Prime Minister. Get that right. It is right to get a Sarstoon protocol. It is right to get 2,500 Belizeans back on the voters list. It is right to give Belizeans living abroad the chance to vote in this most existential issue. Madam Speaker, Belize is waiting for us to get it right. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Minister, member
Madam
from
Speaker,
Mr.
if you may. First of all, Madam Speaker, I was going to be very long today, you know. But I will not be long because the member for Fort George was brave enough to set the record right and straight, and a lot of explanation that I may make. I don't have to do it again because the right honorable member from Fort George, he has done that for me. Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, if once you are a Belizean, whether you live in Belize or anywhere in the world, is entitled to vote in any election or referendum in Belize. The laws were made by those sitting on the other side of this house, that if you are a Belizean, you must reside in the country and live, not reside in country, you must live at a residence for 2 months, which will entitle you to vote in a referendum or in a election. So nobody know the take away no Belizean, right? There is the law. You follow the law. You had an opportunity when you were in government for 10 years to rectify the law, the very law that you made. But let us go forward, go ahead, Madam Speaker. Suppose him even correct. I say we are make one referendum law so that then people could vote in our referendum. Madam Speaker, you know, just come to the house and put one thing before the house and you and say you are make one referendum law, and everybody, whether Belizean, will live in any other part of the world, will be entitled to vote in a referendum. Madam Speaker, what happened to the infrastructure? You have to set up an infrastructure so that things can be properly done. You just can't say you are make people vote and put people in the palace and there is not a infrastructure set up to safeguard the process and to safeguard our democratic process. That is craziness. Madam Speaker, let me go from there. You know there is a country name that was named British Guyana, and there was a country named British Honduras. Well, let me explain something to you what may happen in British Guyana, now named Guyana. There was a man named Foz Burnham, who the Americans and the British didn't want, not him, who they wanted to be Prime Minister and leader of Guyana. And you know what they did, Madam Speaker? They decided that they are going to allow all Guyanese to vote in any Guyanese election, irrespective of which part of the world you live. You know what happened, Madam Speaker? There were no proper infrastructure set up, no proper guidelines, and that kept Fort Burnham in power for years and years and years because they thief the election because of the overseas voting. Did you know that, Madam Speaker? Huh? They stole the election. Election.
Clarification, if you permit me, Madam Speaker.
Point of
The bill,
clarification,
the bill that honourable member from Caribbean Shores presented had nothing to do about voting for general elections. It was only for the referendum.
No,
so I just need to clarify that for my brother on the other side.
You see, he was allowed to talk about the registration and the process to allow people living overseas to vote. When the Prime Minister made objection, he never get up and say nothing. So I have the right to reply to him. Anyhow, Madam Speaker, let me go on. And they went on in Guyana, Madam Speaker. Aldolfo's Burnham party, which was the national party, was the weaker party than Chedijagan party, which was the People Progressive Party. The People Progressive Party remained in opposition for years and years and years until the international community, which was the same Americans and the same British government, forced the Guyanese government to abandon the voting from overseas. How can you just come to the house and you could just say you are present one members bill here, and anybody will live that thing back to anywhere you live, you want to vote in a Belize election without any infrastructure set up, referendum or anything. I don't care what. I don't care what. You're open the doors to corruption, to election cheating, and we on the side of this house will not allow that. Now, Madam Speaker, if this bill should come back and the proper infrastructure process and guidelines are put in place and we can discuss it and debate it properly, then, Madam Speaker, we may go somewhere. But we can't go nowhere with that right child. Everybody, so that only people who live the states want to vote, not only Belizean who got rights, where live the states got rights. People who live any part of the world, India, Africa, China, anywhere, want to right for vote. What kind of infrastructure you want to set up that China so that the people can vote? Who do they want to be agent for? Who want to register the people where they are? So,
Madam Speaker, on a point of order, Madam Speaker.
Huh?
A point of order.
There's a point of order, member.
Madam Speaker, apart, man, have some respect. We are all equals in this house, honorable member from Mesopotamia. Madam Speaker, apart from being repetitive, apart from being repetitive, Madam Speaker.
What's the point of order, please?
He is not sticking to the bill. He's not. So please, Madam Speaker.
Okay, I got your point of order, but this is the issue when I provide guidance and nobody listens, because then there's going to be a response. So, honorable member, can you wrap up on that point? Because indeed, that matter was already explored and discussed.
I have made it quite clear why this side of the house did not entertain that private members bill. And that is clear. Blind-eye James, he could see it.
Thank you very much with that issue.
You talk, the member from Lake Eye, and you yourself, you got up and you say how the Prime Minister lambasted the Chief Justice and lash out on the Chief Justice. Madam Speaker, if you listened to the member from Caribbean Shores and the member from Lake Independence, you may think that we not living in the same country and hear the same message from the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister was never disrespectful for the Chief Justice. The Prime Minister said, I do not agree with how he arrived at his decision. What is wrong with that? I never agree with that either. But the Chief Justice is I know the Chief Justice personally. The Chief Justice is an honorable, decent man. The Chief Justice is honorable and decent, but he's human, and he's the Chief Justice of this country, and we don't agree with one another all the times. Like my friend from Fort George, he's truly my friend, I believe, but I don't agree with him all the time, and I agree with him most of the time. And whether the UDP attack him, I tell you when the UDP attack him or not, I don't see him how you all cross here see him. And that's the phone of business. I see him in a different light. And I have been saying that for years and years, and publicly on national radio and national television. So make we get that straight. But to come back to the point, Madam Speaker, to say that the Prime Minister was disrespectful to the Chief, my jolly man, I can disagree with that judgment. Am I correct, senior member? If you make a ruling, I can disagree with you. You know, when you want disrespect to somebody now, to a judge, if you say the judge arrive at his decision by crookedness, dishonesty, and so, that's something like that. That is disrespectful. Our Chief Justice possesses integrity. Every judge in our court system in Belize possesses integrity. Just like the CCJ. I believe going to the CCJ are the worst decision we as a government could have ever do, where I vote for. Because they are honest, decent people also at the CCJ, but their philosophically outlook on life is not compatible with my philosophical outlook, sir. Do you understand what I am saying? We know we need to get more progressive people to sit as judges at the CCJ. This is my view. Whatever the case may be. But to be honest and to be straightforward, those people at the CCJ, when they make their decisions, they make it with the highest level of honesty and integrity. But I have a right to not to agree with their decision. I got a right to not agree how they rule against small, undeveloped, poor country like ours. That is not being disrespectful to them at all. Because they are good, decent, honorable people. They're right wing and I there up on the other side. That's all I understand. If we get judges, I want judges who are progressive and who are on the side of progressive thinking. That is all. I'll move on that now, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. I think we get your point.
The member from Caribbean shows had a lot of things to say about Guatemalans who live in Belize. My jolly man, Jules nearly, the member for Kaya South nearly kicked under the table because he's married to a Guatemalan and his children are Guatemalans.
Ouch.
He's married to a Guatemalans and his children are Guatemalans. Huh? Huh? So what is wrong? He's entitled to marry to who he wants. And he's married to a good and decent lady. Huh? Because she's a Guatemalan and he married to her. That means the lady no good? Come on, man, grow up. Grow up. Madam Speaker, I want to move from that now. I'm going again.
I like
because
that
the answer all
honorable member.
The leader of the opposition now, he talk about re-registration. How re-registration crooked, etc., etc., etc. But, Madam Speaker, if I remember correctly, they were the people who fought for re-registration before the referendum. And he said, if we are going to have the referendum, we have got to have the re-registration. And you know why they wanted re-registration, Madam Speaker? They said that the voters list is corrupted. We have to clean the list. We have to throw the old list out of the door and create a new list. Now, Madam Speaker, now hear what they want to do. Hear what the leader of the opposition want to do. Where he say a liar want to do. All the people documents where they couldn't find the registry, we must go back to the old voters list. And once their name appear on the old voters list, that must entitle them to get on the new voters list. No! No!
Madam Speaker, on a point of clarification, because I think I need to answer
Point
that.
of clarification, what is it?
I was not in any way suggesting that. What I was pointing out, that when you go and apply at the elections and boundaries, they take a copy of your birth certificate or passport or whatever that was there, so that if no fault of the individual trying to get registered, they can't find the records of birth at Vital Stats, they could go back to their own records to ensure.
Madam Speaker, I'm speaking to you.
I just need to I'm trying to clarify.
Yes. I think he got the. I think
Michael,
he
I
got
don't
the
fight
point.
with you.
Madam
I
Speaker,
just clarify.
may I continue?
I'm just clarifying.
May I continue?
Yes, you may. You may.
May I continue?
Yes, please.
Now they want, yes, I hear Mr. Courtney, who is my very good friend again. He's my friend too. I like Mr. Courtney. Mr. Courtney telling us straight and plain that we must go back to the old voters list. And once the people are near on the old voters list, that's why entitled them forget on the new voters list. But they want to say the old voters list corrupt and not good and dishonest. And we need to get re-registration. Then where you want a re-registration for if you going back to the old voters list? Huh? That is crazy. This is crazy. Huh? I know one man was crazy here. We attacked the former Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker,
Madam Speaker, in the hill
Madam Speaker,
Let's hear a member.
The member cannot be imputing improper motives, Madam Speaker. And what he did is he subtly referred to the leader of the opposition as being crazy. I believe that he should recall back the statement. Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
I think you need to clarify what you said, sir.
Madam Speaker, if nothing I would ever do, I would never refer to my friend from Orange Walk Central as crazy. You are not crazy, sir. You are a good, sober, decent Belizean like I am. Allow me and give me a chance to talk. Anyhow, Madam Speaker, they gone on, right? The list corrupt, the list nasty, the list not good. How you want to take the name there for the sale list and put it on the new list? It's crazy, not the leader. His idea is crazy. No, Madam Speaker, then they went on to say, Madam Speaker, that he want to have a referendum. He is a yes vote. Then one spell, we must take the referendum and we must close it in a box and throw it into a corner and leave it there for 25 years. Then he come back and again, and we must stop the referendum. Madam Speaker, they don't know what they want because their ideas is clouded with deceit and dishonesty in terms of the referendum. Madam Speaker, the member from Lake Independence, he was on television, Madam Speaker, and he honestly said on TV, if this thing go, the ICJ could rule, and we could lose half of Toledo. That's the way he say half of PG we could lose. That's the way the men for Lake I said, no, Madam Speaker, if this thing go to ICJ and we could lose half of Toledo, then if the referendum is held and the vote is yes, and they go to ICJ, and he feels like we could lose half of Toledo, then I would get the impression, just like what the Prime Minister said, that the member of Lake I don't want to have a referendum. Don't want to have a referendum. Because if you have a referendum and the people vote yes, and the thing go to the ICJ, he is full of himself saying that the people of Punta Gorda, they lose half a PG. That's what they say, Madam Speaker. So now that tune all out, you know, they march to the same drum. You know, they march on to the same drum. You the one way, him the one way, former Prime Minister the one way, the member from Kaya South, they disrespect the former Prime Minister. I have never disrespected you yet, sir. We have heated debate, you and I, when you were Prime Minister and I was member across the board. I always respected you and respected my friend from Freetown Division. You, my friend from Freetown Division, you say always and do it. You for move you out of that chair where you sit down there first. Huh? How they undermine you, they badmine you, they undermine you, they cut and contrive and do everything for make you sit down now number 3. I may sit down way the back if I had you. Madam Speaker, let me go on now.
Yes, thank you very much, member.
In every country in the world, people fight and dead for vote. People pick up arms and join revolution in order to secure a vote. This is the only country in the world where the official opposition party in the House of Representatives don't want their people to vote in a referendum. And you don't want them to vote, no come with your foolishness that we want to vote in a referendum. You don't want to vote in a referendum because you have done everything to take the matter to court, to have the court stop us from having a referendum. But we believe in democracy. We believe in justice and fair play. And that referendum we are going to have, and we will have it shortly. And Madam Speaker, when the referendum is held and the people vote yes or the people vote no, whatever decision is made will be respected by this government of the United Democratic Party. Whether it is yes or whether it is no, we will respect the decision of the people. So, referendum we will have. And notice, when George Price took us to independence, I'll show you how people, but before I go with George Price, take me to independence. The signature piece of legislation of George Price and the PUP was social security. Social security. I praise George Price and the PUP every day for social security. You know why, sir? All them poor people who work all their life and live in a Mesopotamia division, at least they have only $100 or $200 where they get every month to keep them and make them have their dignity. But when George Price introduced social security in this house, did you know that the opposition fought Mr. Price and social security tooth and nail? Tooth and nail did not want the PUP government and Mr. Price for implement the Social Security Act. It is blown politics. So many years it has passed now where we got the Social Security Act was passed in the House, and everybody, UDP and PUP, now praise the same act. So that's just politics, just like when we do the referendum and the fuel and 4 people behind me. The fooling, they take them, they don't even want to say the word, it's unfair.
Please don't.
Yes, I won't, ma'am. It's unfair, it is undignified to take advantage of a poor people, man. Tell them the truth. One is so worried about power, who they in a power and suffer. One of the fight for where I left. The people they not even kick me out, I want me out. I didn't left it. No. When Mr. Price went, at the answer everything when they bring up, you know. When Mr. Price went for independence, There was one man in the opposition who went in front of Brody's and placard in his hand. One Theodore Roosevelt Aranda. And the fight against independence, he never want the country get independence. When the country don't get independence, he turn around and be one PUP with Mr. Price where he fight against independence. Yes, and you know what happened now? Prime Minister, you know what happened now? Who you think surface? And if I Louis Slade paper where they advise you, no, don't listen to him, you know, go in the hell. He don't know not more politics. Who you think they vote now? They tell the people for vote no to the ICJ. They say Aranda, he was wrong then in 1981 with independence, and he will be wrong again, and history will judge him. Huh? History will destroy him. They just want to oppose, they just want to be. Give me a nice big word there in private. So you know what them big words. Huh? Huh? They are bad. Madam Speaker, no. Are going on again. Madam Speaker, I want to read about 2 documents on behalf of my party as the whip of this party into the minutes of this House. And I will take them one. I will read the first one, and this one, Madam Speaker, is from the British High Commissioner from the charge of the affairs of the United States Embassy, and from the delegation, head of delegation of the European Union. In other words, Madam Speaker, that was small time people sent out this release. This release was sent out by the big guns of the United States of America in Belize, of the British Embassy, and of the European Union. And I will now read. The European Union, the United Kingdom, the United States of America have taken note of the postponement of the referendum on whether to take the Guatemalan-Belizean territorial dispute to the International Court of Justice, originally planned for the 10th of April. The European Union, the United Kingdom, the United States of America maintain their support in favor of the referendum and hope that it can take place as soon as possible. A referendum puts the decision in the hands of the people of Belize, who would participate in a free and democratic process, and a decision that has implications not only for today's population, but for generations to come. It should also be recalled that the referendum process is the route towards peaceful dispute resolution agreed upon jointly by Belize and Guatemala. Thus, the European Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America hope that legal obstacles preventing the referendum from being held can be resolved in accordance with the Belize legal procedures. Now, Madam Speaker, life is real, ma'am. The United Kingdom, the United States of America, and the European Union, whether we like it or not like it, they control what is happening out there in the world. The 3 most powerful people in the world, the people who sit on the Security Council. There are 5 people who sit on the Security Council. The people who sit on the Security Council by majority, they tell us that this matter must be expedited as quickly as possible. We must amend or have a resolution of what they say is wrong and let the people decide how to vote. Now, Madam Speaker, listen to me carefully. I don't believe in fear-mongering. And I pray to God that we can resolve this Guatemalan dispute quite peacefully. Them people not put it there in a black and white. But if them crazy bullies from cross the border up to the Kaya Road, come cross here and try to do our beloved country harm, Madam Speaker, it has strike to me that them people, I tell you, I tell you to resolve this thing properly, or to do what to wrong, or to do it speedily, and carry the thing that the ICJ way for go. Them people are left way. Right, so you know, they holler like what the Indian like say, think Baba never did it. You understand me, Madam Speaker? I am saying to the Belizean people, be careful of how you are being led by those on the other side. Think carefully. Think with your brain. Use your head. Love your country. And do what you think is right. And let us bring this dispute to a resolution that is peaceful, constructive, and we could all hug up when it's done. Madam Speaker, final paper I will get into the records. This man is a visiting professor at the World Maritime University. He is a member of the United Nations Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf, an associate professor of Maritime Affairs program at Dalhousie University in Canada. This man is Gala Carrera. Carrera. Is Carrera, you pronounce it just like we Deputy Prime Minister? Carrera. Carrera. Yes, I pronounce it good. I know Gala University, but like you about to read and pronounce. Carrera. Now you hear, Madam Speaker, you hear the bucketive where this man have. This gentleman, right, Madam Speaker, I have been following this Belize case very closely for years, including its latest development. The sad thing is, those who store these national passion for alleged personal or political profit end up running away from all responsibilities, leaving their countries in disarray and ridicule. Nobody wins, not even themselves. Then he went on. Belize has a 99.9% winning case in its hand. It would be a tragedy if this opportunity to resolve this Asian controversy is lost and the cycle of economic stagnation and security tension continues in the region for another decade. Could you read that? Could you understand it? Huh? I am reading those things into the record so that at the end of the day, we would have recorded these things. Madam Speaker, I will not read this one, but this is from a gentleman. He is Soran Anderson. Soran Sanders. Soran Sanders, Madam Speaker, is the ambassador to the United States for the Antigua government. He is also a senior fellow at the Institute of Commonwealth Studies at the University of London. And Madam Speaker, this gentleman wrote almost the same thing as the two I have just read. You would imagine that they were sitting together, which is not the case, but came up with the same conclusion. The Barbados newspaper, all the Caribbean countries, Soran Sanders' article was published in every Caribbean newspaper. The people laugh after we People laugh after we because of UDP and PUP foolishness. Let us put aside this PUP, UDP foolishness, Madam Speaker. You know how much money we spend to come so far with this referendum? Millions and millions of dollars. You just throw all the money down the drain, all the hard work that was done by the People's United Party. You started the process. Like Sir Ron Sanders said it in his article, most of the work leading to this point was done by the no opposition People's United Party. That is a fact. We just take over. All the hard work done by you, Said Musa, and your leadership. Don't care what they say about you. It's because of you we have got so far. And history will judge you. History will judge you. In fact, history will judge all of us. All of us. And history will judge the leader of the opposition also. As a flip-flopper. As a man who was for yes and then for no, and then I don't know where I'm going. Madam Speaker, I think that I have made my point. I think you think so too. And you want to hear somebody else's voice. And I think I make my point, Madam Speaker. I don't want man know when I make my point. But we must have respect for fellow members. We must have respect most of all for the electorate and tell the electorate the truth. Be honest to them and be straightforward. This thing have nothing to do with PUP nor UDP. It is time for us to bring the Guatemalan claim to an end. Whether this is done under the People's United Party or whether it is done under the United Democratic Party, it doesn't matter me. Because Prime Minister, I wanted to say this. I'm glad you raised that point, a member for Fort George. This matter, if it get at the ICJ, now I'm materialized in the next 7, 8 years. Prime Minister, I am 70 years old now. I will be 70. I might probably dead. You might probably dead too. The Prime Minister sitting there might dead. All of we might dead, Madam Speaker. You might gone too. All of we might go. But it is true, sir. Am I not correct? That I might never live to see this decision. But you know what I want to do, Madam Speaker? I want to be a part of the decision making of this country. That when I dead and I gone, my daughter and my son unborn child, my unborn grandson. Yeah, I'm gonna be grandpa next month. I will be able to say, they will be able to say to their remaining members of the family, their children, that born of grandpa, my father, what was right for this country. And if the elections are called tomorrow or next year, and the PUP should win, God forbid, but I am alive, and this Guatemala claim is alive, I will now tell the leader of the opposition, he will be able to freely bring a microphone and the camera crew to my home. That big house you tell me about earlier, I know big like for you one, but big too. No, but for him one bigger. At 5784 Golson Avenue, you can bring them there. And you might be the Prime Minister of this country. And you can put the mic in my face. And I will tell you, sir, sitting in my rocking chair, and I will tell you, sir, that I will support whatever move you will make or your government will make to resolve this Anglo-Guatemalan dispute. And finally, let me repeat again, the Guatemalan question is not a PUP nor a UDP issue. It is a Belizean issue and must be dealt with as a Belizean issue. Madam Speaker, I want to behave like Mr. Price now. Madam Speaker, on that note, I thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will try to be brief because we are whipping this horse too many times. The way I see this, Madam Speaker, is that it all started out wrong. We said this thing should not have been political. It should have been an educational process that the Belizean people understand the whole history of this Guatemalan dispute. That did not happen. When you put all the UDP flags on the poles outside in the different towns and villages, that automatically makes it political. So what do you expect people to do? I said in this National Assembly before that the funds that were received for this purpose should have been declared in this House, should have been reported to this House. Why all the secrecy? Why all the secrecy? All this makes people suspicious that something is wrong, that we are not using the right procedures to get the message to the Belizean people. Because at the end of the day, you are telling them yes. All this, the UDP flags out there are saying yes to the people. You are not allowing the people to think for themselves. We don't have no PUP flag out there. There might have been banners out there, but we don't got no PUP flags out there saying no to going to the ICJ. So please, please understand that the message is going out positively, yes, to the Belizean people. Nothing about education. The people that are going around, there are different groups, they are creating more confusion because the people do not really understand the situation that we are faced with Guatemala. We make a positive step, we go backward. We try to go again and we go backward. President Serrano, for example, when he declared and recognized Belize, what happened to it? Then comes another president, they'll do the same. If Guatemala does not get what they are asking for at the ICJ, they will never be satisfied. They will keep coming back. When you look at these things, this is Mr. Ramphal's report. Everything we do or have been doing over the past during the term of the People's United Party, it was always to satisfy Guatemala. Always giving them something, like we owe them something. So if we owe them something, tell us. Why is it we have always been proposing to them that they can do certain things? This is part of the education program, you know. Webster proposal. These are the things that the people should have so that they understand. But they don't know. They don't know. So when you say that we are educating the people, we are very far away from that. You know, Madam Speaker, it is very difficult for us to even understand what's going on in this situation. Then you have chapter 10, heads of agreement. All of them, they should study all of this so that they understand on that side, because I know a lot of them are not even reading these documents. And it's all there for everybody to read. March of 1981, if you give me permission to just read this part. Britain prevailed on Guatemala to sign a document agreeing to recognize the independent state of Belize and respect its sovereignty, territorial integrity in accordance with the existing and traditional frontiers of Belize. A very important element which influenced the shift in Guatemala's inflexible stand on the fact that Britain, backed by 1960 UN Declaration on the granting of independence to colonies, countries, and people, Great Britain made it clear that whether or not Guatemala was ready to recognize Belize Belize would become independent. That was declared. Another vital factor which motivated Guatemala should take the step that they were to recognize Belize, on which recognition was contingent on that which was agreed upon. In other words, they were hoping that they could negotiate the rest of articles, economic and territorial. So that come right back to haunt us today. So, which was the concession in a way that would have been favorable to Guatemala, so that the pills of recognition would not have been too hard for them to swallow. Where are we today? Same place. This was way back in 1981. Today, we have a different president in Guatemala. This president gets up on his campaign trail, and his campaign is, I will get back Belize for Guatemala, plain and simple. And at the end of the day, going to the ICJ, there is no telling exactly what can happen at the ICJ, but there will be concessions. Are the Belizean people ready to accept those concessions? Those people have this, Those judges will read all of these documents that have been laying there for many years. They will use it to their advantage. Now, why is it we believe that we owe Guatemala something? This land belonged to Spain by conquest, by power, because they had the power. And the British come and thief it. I told that to Sede one day. The British come and they thief it, they take it. By conquest, they never fight, but they took it. Where is the title for it? Did they get a title from Spain stating that this is now your property? They get a 1859 treaty, but that is not really a title. And then they moved from one area to the next and expanding their possession of what is now Belize. Our people have to understand that. They have to understand who the British were at that time. Don't think they were great people, They did a lot of damage and harm to the people that were living in the same Belize. And across the world. So we have to be careful when we think that they are our friends. When you think that these people are giving money for us to go and tell the people of Belize that they may vote yes to the ICJ. Because this is what is happening. In my constituency, party in the park, free beer, free food, free coke, and then after that we take the consequences. Madam Speaker, I will not repeat all the other things that have been said here today because we become very repetitious. But if you look at the act, I don't know why in this act they are saying that they will not even announce the results of the election. The way we normally have an election that I know in Belize, the results will be read out at the courthouse, if that is where they are doing the counting, or if they're in a particular school, they'll do the counting. According to what I understand from this document, they will be doing the counting at the respective polling stations. And then the polling stations will send their report to the chief elections officer, who will then have the privilege to announce to the nation the results of the election. I don't know, maybe the Prime Minister can explain to us at the end of this session. But Madam Speaker, as the party leader said, we are not against going to no ICJ. We have certain conditions that we have presented to the Prime Minister, and we hope that we get some respect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. With your permission, I'd like to refer to my notes. It's in note form, so I won't be reading everything on it. But, Madam Speaker, we've had a lot of contributions today from my colleagues, all essential contributions. But a few things I believe we still need to make mention. One of the things I believe the Prime Minister was complaining about the the position of the People's United Party, and he as well read out a letter or a note from the European Commission, the UK, and the USA. But one of the things I have not heard people read out here is as well that there was a statement by President Morales of Guatemala calling on us to conduct a referendum. I find that very offensive, Madam Speaker. I find that completely offensive. Who is this individual? I respect him as president. If I'm in his country, I'll give him all the due respect. But who is he to be interfering in our electoral process? Who is he to be interfering in our electoral process? He has nothing here, nothing whatsoever. I just think we need to make that sure. To Jimmy, nothing there for you. Madam Speaker, one of the big things people keep asking the Prime Minister is what is the rush? I would like to know what is the rush as well too, because if this, we all know this issue is an existential issue for us as Belizeans. As the member from Mesopotamia just said, all right, history will judge all of us, not just a few, all of us on the right side of this decision. So in my view, this decision has to be done slowly and deliberately. Now, I also Googled when is the Guatemala elections. It is slated for June 16th, and if there's a runoff, it will be done on August 11th. Are we trying to beat that deadline, Madam Speaker? Are we trying to ensure that this happens before the elections in Guatemala? Again, I hope that is not the case. But it does lead one to wonder what is going on with that. Madam Speaker, again, one of the issues I have here, and this is where I believe the process is not fully correct, is the way the campaign is being held. Initially, we heard the campaign was an ironclad case, right? Slam dunk. Guatemala is going there to lose this case. And all that, all good stuff we all want to hear. Guatemala want to go to lose. But within San Joaquin, which was politically, a meeting which was politically staged, with Assad Truman, very smart man, no disrespect to him, after careful prodding, he had to admit there is a risk in going to the ICJ. And this is what the Belizean people are not being told, that there is a risk. The member for Mesopotamia just said, Sanders, I believe he said, that we have a 99.9% chance of winning. At the end of the day, there is a slight chance of losing, Madam Speaker. And what will be that slight chance, if that is to happen? It will be completely a rewriting of the map of Belize, totally changing us forever. And do we believe, do we fully believe, if it is only just that, which is unacceptable, that Guatemala will stop there? I believe that they will be emboldened and said, yes, you see, we have a case and really we need to go further up. I don't believe this will satisfy them, Madam Speaker. I really don't. Madam Speaker, one second, where is it? Yeah, I finished that part with the Guatemala election. As well, Madam Speaker, one of the things that I am concerned, the member for Lake, I made a comment about it, that there's a Webster proposal, and all proposals and all whatever the external pressures in leading to independence always had something about some form of a land cession. And I believe that is why Mr. Price spoke about no land cession, not 1 square centimeter, not even a blade of grass. Now, Madam Speaker, this is where I believe the Belizean people need to be clear, to be informed and fully explained. Is this the way to get the Belizean people to accept that there will be some form of a land session, because this time, if the people vote yes, and the court grants Guatemala even 1 square centimeter, who do we blame? Is this now another way of trying to get us to give some land cession, but this time with our consent? Madam Speaker, I am told that there's a thing, the crime of fraud. You know what they say about the crime of fraud? It is the one crime that is done with the consent of the victim. Fraud is the crime that is done with the consent of the victim. So are they getting us to consent to some form of a land cession? I cannot support that at all, Madam Speaker. As well, I see the member, I'm glad he's in here, he took offense to my telling him that our borders are real, and I stick by that. He is wrong. Our borders are not artificial. And I want him to know, I just Googled, since he is depending on Google, I Googled how Google put the Belize border, and they have it dotted line. So even Google is saying they not trust our borders. So if he wants to have faith in Google, you're on your own, member for Pickstack. You're completely on your own for that. All right? Madam Speaker, when I was a soldier, to tell you how this border is not artificial, in the village of Arenal, there's a football field that crosses the Belize border. We, the soldiers, could not play football on that field. Why? For a very simple thing. I mean, it's a small village, friendly village, beautiful village. We can't cross over the Guatemalan side. Trust me, any Belizean soldier crosses that border, he would face some serious discipline. So don't come and tell me this border is not, or this border is artificial. It is a real border. And you ask the soldiers about it. You ask them, ask the ones who have to patrol it, and they will tell you that border is real. Madam Speaker, about a month ago, I was taking a drink at one of the bars in Corozal. I enjoy one of the nice cold bellikin beer now and again. And I met 2 young men from the Coast Guard, and obviously the big hot topic is the issue of the ICJ. So I was asking them, what do you guys know? I mean, do you all know what's going on and all that? They knew nothing. They knew absolutely nothing. And the question I have is that these young men who are in charge of our national security are not aware of the issues, why they're holding the line for us, why they're defending Belize territorial waters for us, and they are not educated on this issue? Do the government have confidence in them? If they have confidence in them to send them out to protect our borders, why they don't have confidence in informing them of why we're protecting these Belizean borders, Madam Speaker? And that's why I'm weary. Why the rush? And I go back. Is it before, we need to get it done before June 16? Should we? I don't know. Madam Speaker, as well, what about the funds being used? There has to be a cost. There has to be a cost. In every village in Corozal Southeast, there are at least 2 young persons going around. The people come to me and complain that all they have to say is yes, 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 when I vote yes, when I vote yes. Every time the people prod them, that's when they say, no, 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 we have to go. Because they themselves are not being told the proper issues why the country should vote yes. Again, I repeat, it is in Corozal Southeast where Assad Truman had to accept there is a risk. And he may want to take that risk, definitely. Not me. I will not take that risk. We also have the issue with re-registration, Madam Speaker. And you know what is the funny thing about this? I might get in trouble with my party, but Madam Speaker, for this re-registration, my opponent had to come to me and ask me what to do, how to get the people registered, what they needed. And I firmly believe it is a right to vote. So we helped everyone. Corozal Southeast have one of the highest percentage of people re-registering, Madam Speaker. And with all of that, I'm not intimidated in any which way. I will still win the next election. With all of that will occur. So, no, the people need to vote. The people need to register, and the UDP does not seem to be educating their own people on how to get this done. Madam Speaker, in my area, there are some traditional people. You know what hurt me one day? When a lady, an eligible lady, came to me almost in tears because they had to register her under her maiden name. They couldn't register her under her married name. Right? The lady was distraught. And I had to tell her, Mom, don't worry, man. Don't worry about it. You just, the important thing is you get on the voters list. When all the things are settled down, we're going to go ensure you have your marriage document in order and all that, and get the name changed. What's important is for you to be on the list. But this poor lady never knew what is going on. I have older men, Madam Speaker, men who could be my dad. They are now registered under their mother's name. They're registered under their mother's name, Madam Speaker. Again, and then Corozal, Southeast as well have part of that 3,000 people who no vote. Again, why are they afraid to register these people? I heard them say, let them vote. That is right. Let those 3,000 people vote. My colleague from the Caribbean shows me the comment about Citizen Kim. I bet you, if he never get out into public, he may get registered and he may get voter's ID, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, we need to know, this country needs to know what is the rush. This country needs to get the re-registration process done correctly so that every Belizean can exercise the right to vote, however they want to vote. That's their personal reason. As well, Madam Speaker, like I said, we cannot have any land cession. And I am wary of how it's rearing its ugly head back. But this time, like I said, similar to what is fraud, where you're doing it now with the consent of the victim. Madam Speaker, I cannot support this bill. Thank you very much.
Recognize the member.
Thank you very much, Madam
Leader
Speaker.
West.
Madam Speaker, I rise to make my contribution to the bill that is before us, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to start off by putting on record that, as has been explained and clearly enunciated by this side of the House, that we are not against holding a referendum, Madam Speaker. We want the Belizean people to get an opportunity to participate in their democratic process. What we are concerned about is the very process, the very procedure that they are going to be engaged in, that we see so many flaws within that process, Madam Speaker. And that is why we are concerned, Madam Speaker. So let's make it absolutely clear that we do support the process of holding a referendum and that the Belizean people will have their say on this very important existential matter, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as a Belizean, I take great offense to hear that this country does not have real borders. Honestly, I really take offense to that. And my reliance, Madam Speaker, on the fact that I argue that we do have borders, Madam Speaker, is contained in the definition of what comprises Belize in our Constitution, Madam Speaker. Our Constitution clearly defines that we do have borders. And Madam Speaker, with your permission, I want you to allow me, because I think that this is important. I want to read, to enter into the records of this House, Madam Speaker, what our Constitution says. And with your permission, I will read, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Belize comprises the land and sea areas defined in Schedule 1 to the Constitution. The Constitution, which immediately before Independence Day constituted the colony of Belize. The territory of Belize comprises the mainland of Belize and all its associated islands and keys within the areas bounded by the frontiers with Guatemala and Mexico and the outer limits of the territorial sea of Belize, described as follows, Madam Speaker. A, the frontier with Guatemala is the line prescribed by the treaty between the United Kingdom and Guatemala, signed the 30th of April, 1859. B, the frontier with Mexico is the line prescribed by the treaty between the United Kingdom and Mexico, signed on July 8, 1893. C, the outer limit of the territorial sea of Belize is the limit provided by law, measured from such baselines as may have been prescribed before independence, by law or otherwise as may be so prescribed hereafter. It also includes the Turnip Islands, the Key of Lighthouse Reef, and Glover's Reef, and the adjacent waters. I say this, Madam Speaker, to make the point that I believe, Madam Speaker, like many Belizeans, that our Constitution has locked off the Guatemalans' claim, and it is not in the virtue of our independence, it is because our Constitution says so, that we are an independent nation with full territory and sovereignty, Madam Speaker. Our Constitution clearly defines that. Madam Speaker, the Guatemalan territorial claim is a national issue, Madam Speaker, and requires a mature, honest, and critical discussion, involvement, and participation by all Belizeans, Madam Speaker. Because of its national importance, any discussions, any proposed settlements that may require altering our territorial and maritime borders requires that our people be fully engaged. Madam Speaker, there is the possibility, Madam Speaker, that if this matter goes to the International Court of Justice, and if the International Court of Justice so rules, that we may need to make some adjustments, Madam Speaker, there is no doubt that there will have to be an amendment to Schedule 1 of the Constitution, Madam Speaker. So this is a serious matter, Madam Speaker. This is not a matter that can be taken very lightly. This is a matter that has to be studied very carefully. We have to ensure that we put our best footing on this matter, that we get all the appropriate legal advice, that we look at what are the positive, what are the pros of going to the ICJ, but also what are the risks of going to the ICJ. And this is what this side of the House is advocating for, Madam Speaker. We are advocating for a fair, transparent, and balanced education campaign so that Belizeans can be adequately, appropriately informed, and they will be in a better position to make an informed decision, Madam Speaker. That is what this side of the House is asking for. Madam Speaker, what I can tell you is that I am concerned, and many Belizeans are concerned, that the government will tell you that they have carried out a balanced campaign. But that is not so, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we travel across this country, we notice that the proponents of the Yes campaign, Madam Speaker, are focusing on the fact that they believe that Belize has a very strong case. That Belize has a strong case, what they call an ironclad case, and that there is no way Belize is going to lose at the International Court of Justice. That's what they tell us. But when you ask them, when you confront them to tell you what are some of the risks, they tell you there are no risks. We will win. But, Madam Speaker, courts are constituted by human beings. And human beings can make mistakes, Madam Speaker. That is the reality. That is the reality. We have seen where, in many instances, this government, Madam Speaker, have spoken about how confident they are about winning in the court system. And there are several cases in which the government has had to, be taken to court. The government has spent millions of dollars on litigation, back and forth. paying liars. And at the end of the day, Madam Speaker, what happens? We keep losing them over and over, costing the Belizean taxpayers millions of dollars. So how, Madam Speaker? How? And I want to go back and I want to paraphrase because I cannot quote, I don't remember the exact words of the Attorney General, but in an interview pertaining to, to the case, the injunction that was granted, we clearly heard the Attorney General saying that judges are human beings and that, you can't expect anything from them in terms of how they are going to rule. That is, pretty much, that is what he said. So then, if that is the case, and we acknowledge that judges are human beings, and that there is an element, there is always an element of the possibility that errors may be made in terms of judgments, then how can you tell us? How can you guarantee the Belizean people that going to the ICJ is ironclad and there are no risks, Madam Speaker? That is what the Belizean people want to know, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the People's United Party has a proud record, Madam Speaker, of fighting and working towards independence, Madam Speaker. The Right Honorable George Price, along with the Honorable Philip Colson and other leaders, fought very hard, Madam Speaker, to ensure that Belize became an independent nation on September 21st, 1981. And throughout that fight, Madam Speaker, their mantra was that we cannot cede, we cannot give away not a grain of sand, not a blade of grass to Guatemala. That was always their fight. And I am proud to be associated with this party, with the People's United Party, who granted independence to Belize with full sovereignty and territorial integrity, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Belize constantly faces threats and aggression from Guatemala. This has been historic, Madam Speaker. We know that they keep changing the goalpost. First, we hear they want the entire nation. They want the entire country. Then we hear they want from Sibun to Sarastun. Then we hear they have effectively annexed and occupied the Sarastun, which belongs to us. We know of all the incursions that are taking place in the Chiquibul area. And it makes me wonder, Madam Speaker, and it's certainly a concern that many Belizeans have. Why is it, particularly under this government since 2008, that we have been so accommodating to Guatemala, Madam Speaker? Why? That is what the Belizean people want to know. Why have we been so accommodating to Guatemala? If Guatemala says jump, we don't say why, we say how high you want us to jump. This is of serious concern and serious consequences to our independence, Madam Speaker, and our national integrity. Madam Speaker, it is important, Madam Speaker, that in the discussion, in trying to resolve this matter, this unfounded Guatemalan claim, Madam Speaker, that we examine the various proposals that have been presented. And Madam Speaker, I want to focus a little bit on the Webster proposal and the heads of agreement, Madam Speaker, because I think that those are very important proposals and documents in which...
Excuse me, member, but your member went over that a while ago.
No, but I want to go a little bit more into the specifics, Madam Speaker.
Just try not to be repetitious, please.
Sure, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Guatemala has always wanted to have special rights and privileges. we note that, Madam Speaker, under the heads of agreement, as was mentioned this morning, they wanted to have special rights to run oil pipelines from Petén to Puerto Barrios, Madam Speaker. And they wanted that for free. For free. Madam Speaker, they also wanted to ensure that they have use and enjoyment of our Sapadilla range of keys. That is one of the demands that they also made, Madam Speaker. There was also the discussion of land compensation in the south, Madam Speaker. They wanted port rights to be able to use and enjoy our ports for free. Why? Why? This morning we also heard that they wanted, to be able to enjoy the freedom of movement of people, Madam Speaker, across our country. What I'm trying to get at, Madam Speaker, is that Guatemala has consistently, over the years, bullied its way on us, Madam Speaker, as a country and as a people. They have always demanded, they have always asked, for special privileges. So how certain are we, in the context of going to the ICJ, how certain are we that in the event that the court would rule and say, you know what, your boundaries are okay as it relates to the 1859 treaty, the 1931 exchange of notes, but you know what? We need to consider some of those special privileges and rights that have been negotiated in those agreements that have gone ahead of us. That is a valid question, Madam Speaker, and that is something that we are to be considering. Madam Speaker, when these proposals were presented to the Belizean people, we all know, and history will teach us, that these proposals were outrightly rejected because the Belizean people believe, they have always believed, that Belize is for Belizeans, Madam Speaker. We do not owe anything to Guatemala, Madam Speaker. And that has to resound absolutely clear in the minds of all Belizeans. We do not owe Guatemala anything, Madam Speaker. So why must we be making these concessions and accommodations, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, I want to talk a little bit about why I view that we are accommodating. And I want to look at the matter of the Referendum Act, Madam Speaker.
I'm hoping that you'll get to the bill
that
we're discussing today. If you can tie it in there, that would be the best thing.
Madam Speaker, we all know that Guatemala complained that they were not satisfied with our referendum laws, particularly as it relates to the threshold of our referendum laws. And what did we do? Guatemala complained. And what did they do? They in essence, forced us, Madam Speaker, forced the government to bring to this House legislation to amend the Referendum Act, to move it away from a 60% threshold, Madam Speaker, for the referendum to be valid, to a simple majority. Why? 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 Why are we accommodating, Madam Speaker, Guatemala? Madam Speaker, it is important, Madam Speaker, to also note, and I want to go specifically to the compromise. The compromise was signed in 2008, Madam Speaker. It's been a long time, Madam Speaker. But we know that this compromise never really came to light, did not come to the Belizean people until last year. Last year, when Belize decided that, we are going to have a referendum on the 10th of April. Why did it take the government so long? Madam Speaker, the compromise contains very important information as it relates to the possibility of the adjustment of our borders, the possibility of having to change our constitution, the possibility of concessions that may have to be made to Guatemala. Why is it that this matter was not openly debated in the National Assembly so that the Belizean people will have an opportunity to know what is contained in the special agreement. These are the concerns, Madam Speaker, that the Belizean people have. Madam Speaker, it is important to note, and I am not going to go into all of them, but let me say that I want to focus on a couple of them as it relates to the People's Declaration that was made by our party, Madam Speaker.
So this is the third time we're hearing it. Can I just go specifically to the ones you want to bring
Yes,
in
Madam
relation
Speaker.
to the
I
bill?
want to look at the
Please,
matter
let's
of
move along.
the balanced education campaign. Madam Speaker,
But
Madam Speaker,
we
Madam Speaker. No, I'm coming to the point, Madam Speaker. The point is, Madam Speaker, that there are many other groups, Madam Speaker. Groups such as the Referendum Unit, the CDS, and those organizations, Madam Speaker, those have been privy to receiving funding from the government, Madam Speaker, in promoting the Yes campaign. The issue is, Madam Speaker, that equally so, you have other groups, Madam Speaker, such as the Peace Movement, such as the Belize Territorial Volunteers and others, who are also engaged, Madam Speaker, in also carrying out their own education. And they have not been privy, Madam Speaker, they have not been privy to receiving any kind of funding and any kind of support from government. So how is it? I mean, if we are talking about taxpayers' dollars being used, Madam Speaker, then we must ensure that there is equity in this process, Madam Speaker. There has to be equity in this process, Madam Speaker. Another important thing, Madam Speaker, is that we are equally concerned about why the rush? Why the rush? The courts, Madam Speaker, but I have a right to speak on that, sir. The courts made it absolutely clear, Madam Speaker, that there were certain things that had to be corrected. Madam Speaker, I believe that a matter of this should have ensured, Madam Speaker, the government should have ensured that due process, that adequate time was given, Madam Speaker, in ensuring that in the drafting of the bill, all considerations, Madam Speaker, would be given to ensure that at the end of the day, you design a bill, Madam Speaker, that would encompass all the possible loopholes that may be there, Madam Speaker. We, the opposition, Madam Speaker, did not get a chance to even participate, Madam Speaker, or to even contribute to this process. And that, Madam Speaker, is very concerning, because this is a matter of national importance, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in winding up, Madam Speaker, I want to say that the yes proponents, Madam Speaker, accuse us that we are voting no due to fear and a lack of understanding, Madam Speaker. However, Madam Speaker, on the contrary, we are taking a bolder stance, Madam Speaker. Our stance believes in the intelligence and strength of our Belizean people, Madam Speaker. We can solve this problem through smart international diplomacy and innovative national policies, Madam Speaker, that will make us stronger and more resilient as a country, Madam Speaker. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Kayo Northeast member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to make my contribution to this debate on the Belize Territorial Dispute Referendum Bill 2019.
I'm not sure you're speaking into the mic, or the mics are giving a lot of trouble today. I apologize, but
I hope it's not only ours on our side, Madam Speaker. Today, Madam Speaker, we are asked to approve a bill that appears to be, Madam Speaker, using the Prime Minister's word, a panacea to fix all the problems in this debacle. I agree, Madam Speaker, to support a referendum that is fair, that is just and is constitutional. We cannot hide the writ of referendum within the flood special agreement. Madam Speaker, I also want to mention that I have a problem with the timeliness of the House documents before such an issue of existential importance when it is afforded to us just hours before it is debated. I would be disrespecting my constituency, Madam Speaker, and the wider people of Belize if I was to vote on a bill which I have not seen, which I have not studied, and I have not consulted. Madam Speaker, I have expressed my dissatisfaction before, Madam Speaker, with the issue of the Referendum Act of 2016 when it was tabled and was passed and was brought to the House for second reading. Madam Speaker, I can recall saying that a referendum for any other issue, I wouldn't have had a problem for it to go through with a simple majority. But for a referendum that looks at the issue of Guatemala and Belize, the claim of Guatemala over Belize, that looks at our sovereignty, at our territorial integrity, I believe then, and as I believe now, should have had a threshold. Madam Speaker, like my colleagues have said, we have appeased Guatemala every step of the way, the 3 times of changing the referendum, changing the special agreement so that they can go first. Madam Speaker, we have appeased them all the way. Whenever Guatemala is cornered, they hide behind their constitution, but we seem to want to be willing to trash ours. Madam Speaker, it was on the same day that the referendum was passed, on January 13, 2017, that upon the adjournment, Madam Speaker, I stood up and spoke at length of the issue of births and death certificates. Madam Speaker, I went on to mention the fact that we are signatories to the United Nations. At that time, we were looking at those for children. But I had also mentioned that there were many adults, 25, 30 years and over, who had never had a birth certificate. Madam Speaker, I also mentioned then that to tie in the issue of the lack of birth certificates, I also looked at the problem of those people who could not get at the time a social security card because it was a requirement for them to get a birth certificate, and then the problem was also there. At the House meeting of Friday, September 28, 2018, Madam Speaker, I rose and made my contribution to the Amendment Bill 2018 in regards to the registration of births and deaths. And as I recall, it was speaking of a small amendment where just the authority was moving away from the Chief Registrar to the Attorney General's office. I also said that I did not believe that that would make the substantive changes that we needed. Madam Speaker, again on Friday, November 23, 2018, at the adjournment, Madam Speaker.
Excuse me, Member, you're recapping everything that you discussed in the previous meeting.
No, Madam Speaker, I think this is very relevant.
Yeah, good.
So
you need to move it along, though. Please.
So that, Madam Speaker, we can see that this is not something that we just brought up, because they, on the other side, are saying that we have just brought this up. This is 3 years ago that we have been bringing this up, Madam Speaker. Again, Madam Speaker, with the re-registration process, we pointed out that at the end of September, I was the first one to point out that there were so many persons that had attempted to get registered and could not get registered or were taken out the list, and as of today, there are some of them that are still not registered. So, Madam Speaker, that is, and as I said, a violation of their constitutional rights. Someone mentioned earlier, Madam Speaker, and I think it's the leader of the opposition who mentioned the issue of our obtaining adult suffrage in 1954, which afforded us Belizeans the right to vote. But if we now come and do not give these people the opportunity to vote, then we are taking away that constitutional right. Madam Speaker, I have in my constituency, Madam Speaker, and you know you don't want us to call names, but we have this 60-year-old lady that has not been able to get her birth certificate. And for a simple thing, Madam Speaker, they have turned her back and said that she has to re-register. Her parents are dead, and they want 5 affidavits from people who knew her parents. They're all dead. So they asked her to go to Benket to get a baptismal record. She took her baptismal record, which she had, Madam Speaker, in an immaculate condition because it was in a folder in a plastic bag. But she obtained it in 2007, just for you to see how long ago she was trying to get this thing done. And they turned her back and said, even though it's in immaculate condition, it was obtained in 2007, she has to get a 2019 one. It is absurd, Madam Speaker. It's out of order. Madam Speaker, the suggestion by the Honorable Leader of the Opposition in using the binders for checking on birth certificates for people who had already been registered before July 2, 2018 makes a lot of sense. But also, Madam Speaker, there's an alternative in looking at the Social Security records. They have thousands and thousands of persons who have been registered, and they have copies of those birth certificates, which is an area we can go to. We have spent millions of dollars so that we can also get that done. Madam Speaker, I also have a concern with, if you want to term them, the lies or falsehoods, because of this issue when they go to our constituencies and speaking about this ironclad case, and when people ask about why is it that Guatemala will still be making this claim and trying to go to the ICJ to make their claim valid, the response is that the Guatemalans would like to drop the claim, but because the claim is in their constitution, that they would possibly be killed if they drop the claim. So they want somebody else to remove the claim. Madam Speaker, if Guatemala put it in their constitution, Madam Speaker, it is their responsibility to take it out. It's not ours. Madam Speaker, I believe the Honorable Member, Mr. Mike Espat, mentioned the issue of the ICJ affairs. Is that a form of bribing, Madam Speaker? In San Ignacio, they have a big riverside party. And the advertisement in Spanish calls for people to come out, all the family can come out. It's free food, free drinks, bouncy house, raffles, bags of giveaways. And in Spanish, they name you all the types of foods that will be available, Madam Speaker.
Can you get back to the bill that we're discussing,
It is, Madam
please?
Speaker. It is. It is there, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the other thing that they mentioned, Madam Speaker, is that they are not fear-mongering, but that if we vote no, or the people vote no, that we will lose all the support from the international community. I have asked the foreign minister, the ambassador who was in Guatemala, who was doing the training which we were invited to, if there is any documentation that they have that on a yearly basis, these countries who supported us for independence have now said that if we vote no, they will take away their support from us. He said they don't have that. So I said, is it true then that those countries who are democratic countries, who supported us for our independence, supported the will of the people? He said yes. So will they not also support the result of the referendum, whether it is a yes or a no? He said yes. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Member from Mesopotamia just read an excerpt from some of these countries that say that they want the referendum done and to be as soon as possible, and that they are willing to support the decision of the people of Belize, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the member from Mesopotamia also said that he's not fear-mongering, but he said that the people from that side are a little aggressive and that they had already threatened to come in and we cannot defend ourselves and whatnot. Madam Speaker, let's recall what Shakespeare said in Julius Caesar. Only cowards die many times before their deaths. Madam Speaker, and to end, Madam Speaker, I recall that the member from the Foreign Minister, the member from Pigstock, mentioned and he alluded to a quote in the Bible, and he also looked at this side and said that Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." Madam Speaker, I would also like to end saying that in Proverbs 21:28 it says, "Be careful, do not remove the boundary stones set by your ancestors." Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Really long debate, and I think on our side, the Honorable Minister of Housing has done an exceptional job in answering the majority of what was said on the other side of the House. So that certainly makes my job that much easier. But there are some of the individuals over there that said some absolutely outrageous things that I feel that I personally have to respond to. With respect to the good member for Cayo South, well, we've been warned not to call anybody crazy. And so I wouldn't even entertain the slightest thought of going there. But we surely are permitted to talk about those that have delusions of grandeur. When I heard the member for Cayo South say that he was going to close the debate, so well, here it is. This man, obviously, we know he wants to be Prime Minister, but he obviously thinks that he is already Prime Minister. I wanted to be charitable and think to myself, maybe it's a mere slip of the tongue, but when you pointed it out to him, he said, well, I don't want to misquote him, but something to the effect, well, I would have liked, in fact, to have been in a position to close the debate. So when you want to talk about delusions of grandeur, in my view, that admission to you alone vitiates any validity, and there was much to start with, of anything he might have said. So all I would say to him is, next time, member, before you come to the House, remember to take your lithium, your pills. And then let me talk, Madam Speaker, with respect to the member for Caribbean Shores. Well, he waded into the attack and joined in this effort to some extent, the Minister for Housing has answered, but I have to expand on it just a little, because I want to point out how dishonest the member for Caribbean Shores is. He's a lawyer in the same way that I am, and he knows that there are permissible bounds with respect to criticizing the decision of a judge if you don't like the decision. Justice, as they say, is not a cloistered virtue. No decision of any court is immune from criticism. What you can't do, Madam Speaker, and what I haven't practiced, admittedly, for about 11 years, would never forget, what you can't do is attribute bad motive or dishonesty or bias to the judge. But my saying that I think he got it horribly wrong is absolutely permissible. How then do they get to the point of saying that I disrespected the Chief Justice and attempt to use that to then make a connection with the bill today and suggest that the bill is a continuation or in the same vein as the so-called disrespect to the Chief Justice? Well, I make the point again, Madam Speaker, that there was no disrespect in what I said. They also latched on to, as well though, the fact that in continuing to talk about the way forward, I said the Chief Justice is not exactly known for giving timely decisions. Again, how is that disrespectful? Have there not been 2 or 3 resolutions of the Bar Association of Belize saying precisely that? And I will go further. When your, according to you, super legal eagle, Amon Harrison Courtney, was president of the Bar Association, he called up the government. He called up the Attorney General to say that they were interested in removing the Chief Justice from office, and he was seeking the support of the government for that. And this government told him absolutely no. So far from disrespecting the Chief Justice, we actually supported and continue to support his continuation in office, notwithstanding the ruling. And I will continue to say that I absolutely disagree with his ruling, that I think he got it horribly wrong, but I know that it was a position on his part honestly arrived at. And Madam Speaker, while I disagree with it, I am bound to respect it, and I do respect it. And that is why we're coming to the House in the fashion that we do, because I don't want to be at all rude to the member for Caribbean Shores. And I must not be deemed to be passing any judgment on his abilities as a lawyer. I haven't been in practice. I have no idea. He strikes me as a perfectly intelligent young man. But he either got it terribly wrong because he is uninformed, or he was being deliberately malign when he suggested that in coming to the House today and seeking to deal with the situation by the route we have adopted, that this amounted to interfering with a matter that is still live before the Chief Justice. My goodness, man. A first-year law student would know that if we had gone the route you suggested and come here to amend the Referendum Act under which the injunction was made, that would have been interfering with a live issue. This is a completely new bill. This would constitute a new legislation. So we would not be moving to interfere although the argument could always be that in seeking to address the situation that the Chief Justice did not give any concluded view on, that he merely said was a serious enough issue to be tried, that we wouldn't really have been interfering because the matter is now stale, in my view. But we always knew that the legals, in which I must now include the good member for Fort George, notwithstanding what I just said about how he cocked up the business of what it is that would for Caribbean Shores, about he cocked up what he said about the route we have taken to come here and how that is an affair that could constitute an interference with a live issue. Madam Speaker, it is precisely because while we think that events have overtaken the Chief Justice's ruling, the referendum that was to have been held on April 10th as a consequence of the writs that were issued has not been held. So it strikes us that in fact the matter now lapses. But you hear them? It seems that they would want to still treat it as a live issue. And if we had come here to amend the Referendum Act so as to issue new writs, they would immediately have gone back to court to say, but Mr. Chief Justice, your order was not limited to what was happening under the writs that had been issued. It said you must not hold a referendum until the court would have determined this matter under the Referendum Act. So it is false, it is duplicitous, it is terribly dishonest to suggest that in passing now, or in seeking to pass, a completely new act, we are in any way being disrespectful. In fact, Madam Speaker, let me repeat, it is because we are determined not to take any chance at all that anyone could suggest we're amending the Referendum Act, which is the route they say they would have supported, and I'll tell you in a wild way they would never have supported that. It is to make sure that no charge can be made that we are simply amending the Referendum Act so that we can sidestep, or worse, disrespect the Chief Justice's injunction, which I know, despite what common sense will tell anybody, that must have lapsed, they are going to seek to continue to treat as a live issue. So, Madam Speaker, I say again, I don't know what's up with the member for Caribbean Shores. I have my suspicions, but let me not voice them. Let me only say that those suspicions were given additional life by the other point that he and so many of those on that side then raised, that in doing what we are attempting to do today, we are changing the constitution of this country, and that we require a 2/3 majority. Well, his father, quite respectfully, confounded that by pointing to the very ruling of the Chief Justice, which ultimately gave them an injunction, of which they're so proud. But his father pointed to the other aspect of the ruling, which they neglect to highlight. They don't tell the people of this country that that was one of the bases on which they applied for the injunction. And that was the one dismissed out of hand by the Chief Justice. You see, Madam Speaker, allow me a little bit of time. When you go for an interim injunction, let me concretize it. This case, they went for an interim injunction. They needed to show, basically, in essence, two things. One, that there was a serious issue to be tried. And two, that the balance of convenience in that case, if there was a serious issue to be tried, favored the granting of the injunction. The serious issues they said, they pointed to as needing to be tried were twofold. The one on which they succeeded, which was basically that under the Referendum Act, the section which says you can have a referendum on any proposed settlement with Guatemala could not cover the settlement under the special agreement. And that was the one that the Chief Justice said, well, I am not offering a concluded view, but I am saying that I think there may be something in that, so I declare that that is a serious issue to be tried. And when I go to the balance of convenience, and this is what, as I said, completely befuddled me, the Chief Justice found that, well, irreparable harm would be done to the claimants if he didn't grant the injunction, but no irreparable harm would be done to the government if he granted the injunction. Well, Madam Speaker, again, I say I don't understand how the Chief Justice reached that position, but he reached it, and we respect it and we accept it. But with respect to the other issue about the fact that to have any referendum under any law, of course they were talking at the time about the Referendum Act because that was the only law, requires, first of all, that there be an alteration of the Constitution by a two-thirds majority. The Chief Justice said, in effect, that is risible, laughable. My word, not his. He said that was, as the member for Fort George put it, at the very least entirely speculative and could not constitute even a serious issue to be tried. So how you come now and say that this bill, and surely you would have said the same thing if we had come by way of an amendment to the Referendum Act, how you come now and you say that one of the fears you have is that Section 3, which makes plain that the new bill is so that there can be a referendum in terms of the special agreement, that this constitutes an alteration of the Constitution. The Chief Justice has already ruled on that. And I repeat that while that is not his words, those were not his words, or that was not his expression, and I've told you, or the member for Fort George has told you how the Chief Justice framed it. In my expression, it is reductio ad absurdum. You're reducing things to the level of absurdity. You don't have to be a lawyer, Madam Speaker, to know that when they say, well, you see, you go to the ICJ, there is a possibility, however infinitesimal, and nobody can argue that. Nobody can argue that. There is a possibility, infinitesimal though it is, not maybe, it is. All the legal opinions tell us that. But you're right. There is ever so slight a risk that things might not go entirely the way all our lawyers feel they will go. And we don't hide from that. And then they say, well, on the basis of the possibility, not even the probability or likelihood, that the ICJ could say something that might mean even an adjustment to your maritime boundary. That would then be in conflict with the Constitution. So, just to provide for going to the ICJ to have them decide. Not even after you get a yes vote, you know. Just in order to put to people the question of whether or not they want to go to referendum, you must alter your constitution. As my friend, the member for Mesop, said about their other proposal, that is crazy, that is kooky. So, Madam Speaker, that kind of argument being employed to suggest that there is anything wrong with this bill, anything challengeable with this bill, is absolute stuff and nonsense. Of course, anybody can challenge any bill, however unreasonable the challenge is. No bill can be made challenge-proof, but we have had not just the drafting people in the Attorney General's ministry look at this. We've had a number of luminaries throughout the Caribbean, including people at the level of judges, who have assured us that this bill passes all constitutional muster. So it really is outrageous to suggest otherwise. Then they say, Madam Speaker, what's the rush? How do you mean what's the rush? There is no rush. We announced the holding of a referendum 1 year ago. And it was fixed for April 10th. You waited until the last minute to mount your challenge, a challenge that I know you felt you never had a hope in hell of winning. So when I said you could have knocked me down with a feather, you could have knocked them down with a feather, when in fact they succeeded in getting the injunction. But you knew a year ago. How can you say now that because you succeeded in delaying the referendum set for April 10th, our coming back to say Belizeans were deprived of their expectation developed over a year, and in consequence of the education campaign, which you say was not particularly successful, but which others say people were getting tired of because they were being so bombarded. It was such a continuous assault on their ears. How can you say that you succeeded in getting it postponed to the chagrin, to the upset, I keep telling you, of a number of right-thinking Belizeans? How can you say that our coming now to say, all right, courts have said it must be postponed. Postponed it is. It has been. We will try to reinstate it. We tell the good Belizean people as quickly as possible, so that that vote that we are all agreed upon can take place the soonest, because you have been promised it for over a year. What can be sinister about that? And you talk about, because the bill compresses the timeline, after I would have requested, if the bill passes, it still has to pass through and it still has to go to the Senate. The timeline for the writ to be issued after I would have made the request of the Governor General is cut in half from what it was under the Referendum Act, from 30 to 15. Well, first of all, What's so prejudicial about that, since all Belize knew the referendum was to have been held on April 10th? And in any event, that's not the timeline you're to worry about. Nothing can happen until I write to the Governor General. Somebody has told you that I will write to the Governor General if the bill passes on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday? Or how do you know when I will write to the Governor General? You no doubt feel that I will write quickly. And I won't disabuse you of that notion, because the Belizean people have a right to get this situation remedied soonest. And so I make that point about what you should concentrate on is when the trigger will be pulled, merely to demolish another of your extremely, how shall I say, empty, hollow arguments that you've come here with today, again to try and persuade the Belizean people that we are wrong in attempting to set right the mischief, the harm, the prejudice, all of that's been done in consequence of your actions in doing what you did and in waiting until the last minute to do it. Madam Speaker, you know, I listened again to the member for Lekai, and I really am upset about the disrespect, talk about disrespect, in which he would want us to hold the international community. He's saying we are to have no regard to them. We are Belizeans. Well, my God, man. It is the internationalization campaign, along with the vision of George Price and Assad Schuman and Said Musa and all of them, that won us independence. It was a great triumph when we got the international community to support us. And ever since, we have been relying on the international community. Every pan knock, every turn you turn, we come back from some conference, they wave some declaration of the particular forum, the particular international community meeting that reiterates their support for Belize's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And the Minister for Housing is perfectly correct. This latest notification or statement issued by that troika, the EU, the UK, and the US. The UK, France, another member of the EU. As far as I know, the UK is still a member of the EU. Brexit doesn't seem to have gone through yet. And the US are permanent members of the Security Council. If we go to the ICJ and we win our case, it is the Security Council that will enforce the judgment against Guatemala if there's any foolishness on Guatemala's part. My point is, Madam Speaker, even in terms of the special agreement, even in terms of the commitment to put to a referendum this business of going to the ICJ, we were operating within the ambit of the international community. How then, Mr. Deputy Leader, you continue to want to be so dismissive of the international community? How then, Mr. Leader of the opposition, can you not care if you ever become Prime Minister? You have to deal with the international community. How do you think they're viewing you right now? What must they imagine of you? And then, Madam Speaker, I've already made the point that in talking about our needing to have come here by another route, by either the amendment of the Referendum Act or the passage of a resolution under the amendment, under the Referendum Act, to say that this is declared to be a national issue. Well, if there is a constitutional problem with going to the ICJ, then by any route you come, there would still have been a constitutional problem. But they say, well, you might have gotten around that because you would have gotten the two-thirds majority because we would have supported you. Well, I listened to what Cordell Hyde said, and I made a note of that. When he finished trashing the special agreement, talking about by it we were outsourcing Belizean power to the ICJ, we were outsourcing this and we were outsourcing that, I was left in no doubt that he is utterly against the special agreement. We know that he's against going to the ICJ, but that he is so utterly against the special agreement that any bill or resolution we would have brought here to say that going to the ICJ under the special agreement was a good thing, he would not have supported. So, again, I make the point to the Belizean people. It is all, to them, some game of tiddlywinks or hopscotch. They're all over the place. And ultimately, it is because their objective is to frustrate the expectation, the entitlement, and the right that the Belizean people have to their referendum on this issue. You know, Madam Speaker, I would like to address some points made by the member for Fort George. I hear one of them done post on Facebook, Said must go. They talk about how they talk about how they are such a multi-view party, and according to the member for Lekai, it's a big tent. Well, they're already going after the ex-prime minister. But, sir, in doing what you did, for which I absolutely commend you, salute you, you raised a number of points that, out of respect, I must answer. You say that you believe the referendum campaign has been mishandled. I would say this, surely it has not been perfect, but I make the point that at the start, and I did so in moving the second reading, at the start, the co-handler, the co-chief of the process was the leader of the opposition's chief of staff, Ambassador Leslie. And as far as I know, he and Jimmy Murphy and others started going all over the country. The amount of material they distributed is copious. And so, while it is a judgment that the member for Fort George might legitimately make, I have to say that given that there is no perfection in this world, I don't agree that the job done by the referendum unit amounts to any kind of mishandling. I think, Right Honourable Member for Fort George, you may have made the point as well about the Maritime Areas Act. Well, we have long ago committed to repeal the Maritime Areas Act. It is just a matter of timing. And I declare in this House now that as soon as the referendum is held, and certainly not later than 2 weeks thereafter, we will come to Parliament to repeal the Maritime Years. But I think, Right Honourable Member, we are somewhat on the horns of a dilemma. Because one of the questions you ask and I ask, and all of those who believe in yes, is if we don't go to the ICJ, what then? What is their option? What is their alternative? Well, there can only be one alternative, and that is to try to resume that old, sterile, futile course of bilateral negotiations. And if the Maritime Areas Act was passed in order to aid negotiations, and we repeal it, as we're going to do, and we don't go to the ICJ, and we resume negotiation, we have to pass it again, so that the aid to negotiations can continue. You see the position of absurdity that you get us into when you inveigh against going to the ICJ, but present us with no kind of option? Let us get this monkey off our backs. And the only way to do it is to go to the ICJ. If we resumed negotiations, why would anybody think we would be any more successful this time around after a failure lasting over 50 years? No Belizean politician will ever, in any negotiations, cede a grain of sand or a blade of grass. But the moment you agree to negotiate, aren't you implicitly saying, well, this will be a back and forth, a give and take, so that there is some concession you are prepared to make? But we are not prepared to make any concession, so we can't go to negotiations. And if we can't go to negotiations, the only other option is to go to court. We would go to court, we would need to go to court in any event. But we go to court especially because we do have... So I tell you about reductio ad absurdum. But again, so I give the member for George and the people of Belize that commitment, notwithstanding that if we get a no vote, there's going to be a circularity about that. The question of the charge that 2,500 persons, 3,000 persons, again, they vary, the five. Madam Speaker, it must be that a couple of things have gone wrong, but that number is something they pull out of a hat. I checked with the Attorney General. They have no such estimate. And as if there are problems, and no doubt there are, the member for Mesop again, you're going to fix the problems by simply putting back on everybody who has not been able to get back on, who was on the previous voters list? How can that be an answer? What's the purpose of re-registration? What is the purpose of re-registration? But I promise to the member for George, to the House and to the nation, after we see what happens on Monday, assuming the Senate passes the bill, I believe it will pass here this evening, and the Governor General assents, I will ask the Attorney General to take with him the head and perhaps the second in command of Vital Statistics Unit, and face the media and the public and answer all the questions that people have and take all the sensible suggestions that might be offered in terms of fixing whatever is wrong. And I concede there must be some things wrong. But I can't go beyond that. I can't tell you that in order to solve the problem, we will make give everybody one birth paper. We can't do that, Madam Speaker. You know, when the member for Toledo East talked about the various proposals that had been made, the Webster proposals, and somehow suggesting that sours the process now because the Guatemalans would have known that there were times when we were prepared to make concessions. Well, never ever, as I understand it, the PUP was in office. Was it the official position of the PUP to make any concessions? But according to Assad Schuman's book, it was certainly the position of the late, God rest his soul, Vernon Harrison Corte. During the break, when they reported on the meetings held in New Orleans on 21st April 1975, according to the British, the record of the discussions, the British met separately with Courtney and became convinced that Courtney, unlike Price, was prepared to entertain land cession. And then they repeated the note. Record actually says, I am also reasonably convinced that this is now Courtney's view, that he feels that the price, land cession, is worth paying. So, Mr. Member for Toledo East, lucky for you, and I think everybody else believes, including the member for Fort George, that whatever might have been said at that time, whatever might have been constituted by the Webster proposals, can never sour our case now, can never be used by the Guatemalans to make some argument that there's some legitimate expectation on their part that we will make any concessions at the ICJ. We want to go to the ICJ with our extremely strong case, and we go there for one purpose, to win and to reaffirm the absolute integrity of Belize's current and enduring and everlasting borders. Madam Speaker, let me wrap up by, well, if the member for Cayo South will allow me to close the debate. By just saying that the words of the leader of the opposition really ring hollow when he says that we cooperated fully with them because they were respectful, and they don't cooperate with us because we are not respectful. Madam Speaker, that's not true. And when he says we have not included them the way we could have, it is certainly not true, or the fact certainly is that we have tried to. The leader of the opposition will know that when Assad Schuman first came back and we were contemplating at the time taking him on as a special envoy to help with the consultations, I arranged for Assad to see him, and he and I had a discussion. His chief of staff was there, so I don't think there was anything, no, there couldn't have been anything secret about it because the media reported on the fact that we had a meeting. And I asked him, please give us representation on the referendum unit. Please let us work this process together. Stuart was already there. you had to take him off, put him back, or find him or somebody else, and not just one person, any number of persons you deem necessary to put on the unit for the education campaign. And he conceded to me that that was not the wish of his party, so he couldn't do it. So he couldn't do it. And again, sorry, Madam Speaker, I'm glad the deputy talked about Sassoon. When you come with this nonsense about the Guatemalans have annexed the Sarstool, man, stop lying to people. There has been no annexation, and there are antics there. Schwebel. And you know, when you talk about judges and what has happened here, here we're dealing with one judge in a case, or a panel of 3 in terms of the Court of Appeal. At the ICJ, you're dealing with, what, 15 judges? But Schwebel, who was not just a judge and vice president, but president of the ICJ, when he was asked, does Guatemala's actions at the Sarstool prejudice Belize's cases at all? He says, the answer is no. It is enough to note that nothing occurring after the signing of the special agreement may be used to favor Guatemala against Belize in a court of law. Belize's case at the ICJ can in no way be affected by the reported recent activities of Guatemala at the Sarstool. Every time there has been an incident, we have protested. We have done everything required under international law to make sure that we do not sleep on Belize's rights, that we preserve and protect those rights. We don't have the military might to force the people to sign a protocol. We took them to the OAS. We got the OAS Secretary General to instruct them to sign a protocol. They turn around and they tell us the OAS Secretary General is not our boss. And when the Guatemalans behave like that, when Jimmy Morales goes and draws some map of Guatemala, including Belize, that is what should make us more resolved to go to the ICJ. It is only the ICJ and the UN Security Council that can stop that from happening. But I was saying, Madam Speaker, that I personally made certain offers to the leader of the opposition in terms of working together, and he was not able, and I'm putting it kindly, to accept those offers because of the position of his party. Now, I was looking for the full quotation from Julius Caesar. Can't find it in this short time on my phone, but let me forget Shakespeare for a while and just say, Madam Speaker, that it strikes me that the leader of the opposition is not really the leader of his party, but the captive of his party. He seems to, as it were, bob along like some cork in the wake of the hawks of his party. He's like so much flotsam and jetsam, part of the detritus that the wrecking crew in his party leaves behind in their determination to frustrate the Belizean people and to stop the referendum. The only part of that Shakespeare quotation that I can remember, so I can't give it in full. This was when, after the death of Caesar, Octavius, Antony, and Lepidus constituted the triumvirate that took over Rome. And Antony was telling Octavius he didn't think that Lepidus should be a member of the triumvirate because Lepidus, he said, is but a slight, unmeritable man. It's the leader of the opposition. Unless you can free yourself from the Rasputin-like grip of those in your party who, you talk about ironclad, who have this ironclad stranglehold around your neck, you are in danger of being seen by all the world, sir, as a slight, unmeritable man. Madam Speaker, I close by saying I hope I have made the case to the House and more importantly to the Belizean public. Nothing sinister about what we're doing. Everything entirely legal and above board. And if we have done this quickly after the referendum, that is after the injunction, that is as it should be, because we are determined, I repeat, that as soon as possible, the people of this country must and will have their referendum.
Honorable Member.
Madam Speaker, sorry, as you put the question, could we have a division, please?
Oh. Okay, honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to provide for a referendum to determine whether any legal claim of Guatemala against Belize relating to land and insular territories and to any maritime areas pertaining to these territories should be submitted to the International Court of Justice for final settlement and for the International Court of Justice to determine finally the boundaries of the respective territories and areas of Belize and Guatemala, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a second time. There's a call for division. Clerk, shall we begin, please? And yes, the government.
Right, Honorable Dean Barrow.
Yes.
Honorable Patrick Faber. Yes. Honorable Erwin Contreras. Yes. Honorable Michael Finnegan.
Yes.
Honorable John Saldivar.
Yes.
Honorable Manuel Heredia Jr. Yes. Honorable Anthony Martinez. Yes. Honorable Gaspar Vega. Absent. Honorable Rene Montero. Honorable Wilfred Elrington. Honorable Pablo Marin. Honorable Hugo Pot. Honorable Edmond Castro. Honorable Omar Figueroa. Honorable Frank Mena. Honorable Beverly Williams. Honorable Tracy Tega Panton. Honorable Elodio Aragon. Honorable Angel Campos. Honorable John Briceño.
No.
Honorable Cordell Hyde. No. Honorable Francis Fonseca. Right Honorable Said Musa. Honorable Rodwell Ferguson Sr. Honorable Josemai. Honorable Julius Espat. Honorable Karim Musa. Honorable Michael Espat. Honorable Florencio Marin Jr. Honorable Oscar Requena. Honorable Orlando Habet.
I present the results. There was a call for division by the government side of the House, and here are the results. Those in favor are 18, and those against, the opposition, 11. So the ayes have it, with one abstention.
One absent.
And one absent. Yes, sorry, it's there. I didn't see it. One absent, one abstain. 11 noes and 18 ayes. The ayes have it.
The bill for an act to provide for a referendum to determine whether any legal claim of Guatemala against Belize relating to land and insular territory and any other maritime areas pertaining to these territories should be submitted to the International Court of Justice for final settlement, and for the International Court of Justice to determine finally the boundaries of the respective territories and areas of Belize and Guatemala, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Committee of the Whole House on Bill.
Honorable members, the House will now resolve into a committee of the whole House to consider the bill that was read a second time. I would like to ask the public in the gallery to leave during this portion of the sitting.